In honor of Her Majesty the Queen, I'm continuing to read to you from The Little Princesses by Marion Crawford. The children could not have been more simply dressed. They wore cotton frocks, mostly blue with a flower pattern, and little cardigan coats to match when it was cool. Blue of a certain misty shade was always the Duchess's favourite colour, and it happened to be mine as well. More than once, on coming down to lunch, I found we were all dressed in the same colour. After that, I tactfully adopted brown. Lilibet had a passion for cherry red, and a red coat she was particularly attached to. I don't think Allah ever quite approved of the simple lives the little girls led, or their almost severe wardrobes. She was a great deal more regal than her youthful master and mistress, and to her way of thinking little princesses should be little princesses always. She never quite approved of their plain tweed coats, business-like berets, and stout walking shoes. Only at their rare parties did Allah come into her own and produce two dear little figures like dolls, all organdy frills, ribbons, and bows. The little girls had each a necklace of coral and real pearls made from a string which their mother had broken up for them. These they wore to parties, and they were very proud of them. Otherwise, they had no jewelry except toy brooches and beads strung by themselves. Margaret took a warm interest in her toiletries from an early age. Lilibet never cared a fig. She wore what she was told without argument, apart from a certain long drab mackintosh which she loathed. She was never happier than when she was thoroughly busy and rather grubby. Until I came, she had never been allowed to get dirty. Life had consisted of drives in the park or quite ladylike games in Hamilton Gardens, keeping to the paths, or leisurely drives around London in an open Victoria, waving graciously to people when Allah told her to do so. I started a few innovations. We played red Indians among the shrubberies. London bushes made quite fine cover for ambushes, but they are extremely smutty. We ran a horse market with their assorted steeds. We played hide and seek and sardines, a form of hide and seek in which you do not catch your man, but creep him beside him when you have found him. The next person who finds these two creeps in also, until there's only one disconsolate seeker left, the loser. When the original hiding place is a small one under a bush, the resulting jam there resembles the inside of a tin of sardines. Other residents in Hamilton Place had keys to the gardens. They came and went. The little girls had names for each of them. I was told of Miss Woggs and Mrs. Happy. I did not recognize for some time that these were the names of their dogs. It was only when Lilibet pointed out a Mr. Skipperkey to me that the truth dawned on me. Mr. Skipperkey died one day and was buried in the gardens. Lilibet was shattered by this and wove a small wreath of poppies for the grave. It happened on Poppy Day. So engrossed in their games were the children that they never noticed the faces so often lined up at the railings that gave onto the park, watching them. It was a thing that at first I found immensely trying. In time, I too became hardened to these ever-present onlookers at every possible occasion, and came to notice them no more than the children did themselves. From time to time, elaborate toys would arrive as presents. All kinds of people were apt to send the little girls things, but at this time no presents were ever accepted from people they did not know, and the gifts would be packed up again and returned with a kind note. The children much preferred simple and inexpensive things they got for themselves. I had a long table made, and Lilibet and I collected a large farm, buying most of the pieces at Woolworths. She went through a phase of being very farm-minded, and at one time used to say that when she grew up, she would marry a farmer. I shall have lots of cows, horses, and children, she told me gravely. There had been some little difficulty in deciding what the children were to call me. Lilibet was accustomed to calling the various ladies in waiting by their Christian names. She asked mine and announced to the world that she would call me Marian. This did not seem particularly good for discipline, and I had not quite made up my mind what to do about it when the matter solved itself conveniently one day. We were playing ball together, Lilibet and I, and she dropped catch after catch. After about 6 dropped balls, she said suddenly, despairingly, "Oh, Crawfie!" Then she paused and looked at me, pleased with herself. "There," she said, "that's what I'll call you." So Crawfie it was, and still is, to a great many other people now besides the children at the palace. They were always good at names for both real and imaginary people, and it was difficult till you got to know them all to separate fancy from fact. Margaret had an imaginary crony called Cousin Halifax, of whom she made every use when she wanted to be tiresome. Nothing was ever Margaret's fault. Cousin Halifax was entirely to blame for tasks undone and things forgotten. "I was busy with Cousin Halifax," she would say haughtily, watching me out of the corner of her eye to see if I looked like swallowing that excuse.